What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Eagles, a Monday press conference recap. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Travis Brown, the Eagles Texas A&M athletics beat reporter. Travis, if we were doing the high school podcast, I'd say these are the ones that start to count. But I guess in college football they all count. Anyway, A&M starting SEC play this week, hosting the Auburn Tigers on the Saturday morning affair.
Yeah, they really do count even more this year because the West looks so wide open. I mean, you look at really the whole SEC looks wide open. We talked about this Saturday after the game. Georgia looked bad. Alabama has not looked so great. They don't know who their quarterback is. Ole Miss has struggled at times. Mississippi State got blown out by LSU. LSU got beat by Florida State. Man, there's
Arkansas lost to BYU.
There's a lot up for grabs here, and all of these games are going to count because this might be the most competitive SEC West we've seen in a long time. Maybe when was the Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State? That was 2014.
2014 when they were all number one at one point.
Right,
and they were like 1, 2, 3 at one point. Like, what the heck was going on in the state of Mississippi that year?
Yeah, it might be kind
Dak
of on
Prescott.
the other end of the spectrum where it's who wants to actually win this thing kind of situation instead of having so many number ones. But yeah, it's pretty wide open.
That year it was Nick Saban, who's the greatest college football coach of all time, probably. It was Dak Prescott, whose Dallas Cowboys are 2-0. Thank you, Dak. And Hugh Freeze, who is now coaching the Auburn Tigers, who A&M plays this week. It all comes full circle. It all comes full circle. We'll get to the matchup with Auburn later this week, and we get to talk with our friends from the Opelika Auburn News. But looking at what A&M shared this morning, we heard from Connor Wigman.
I'm just really impressed that you can say Opelika so smoothly and confidently because I never can get that right.
Well, my good friend Jake Weiss, a proud Auburn alum. We won't let the readers hate on him too much this week. But we heard from Connor Wigman. Let's start with him, A&M's quarterback. Talked a lot with him and Jimbo Fisher today about, throwing mechanics, his background with baseball, quarterbacking, and, just kind of a fun conversation.
Yeah, you got, when you look in that room, you got Brent Zorneman, former Sam Houston State pitcher.
Not a hitter.
Me, yeah. Former TCU bullpen catcher. Mark Passwaters, there's a lot of baseball guys in that room.
Cease, former baseball guy.
Cease, Robert Cessna, former baseball guy.
Hey, I hit a home run in Little League, there you go. There's a lot of baseball guys. So it made sense why the line of questioning on throwing mechanics kind of really caught hold and went on because you don't get baseball guys going unless you start talking throwing mechanics. Jimbo's a baseball guy.
Jimbo's a baseball guy.
AC's a baseball guy.
Yeah, so many baseball guys in that room. Donna Conrad at KHR
softball,
Albany softball. Can't leave the
Richard
softball out
Zane,
there.
big baseball guy.
Yeah, we won't. Yeah, he's a big Dodger guy. I don't know.
Yeah,
if we're gonna hold it anyway.
Sorry, Richard.
So, so a lot of talk about mechanics, and you aren't watching the game closely if you don't see how many different arm slots that Connor Wigman throws from. I mean, most of them, and he says what Jimbo Fisher's always harping on him is to make sure he's coming over the top, the traditional quarterback throw, keep it compact and throw it over the top, get the best accuracy that way. But I remember one of those, and I can't remember which one, but one of the times where Connor Wigman was blitzed and had a guy coming at him, completely unblocked. He stepped back and shoulders squared to his receiver, just whipped it sidearm
like Pat Mahomes,
like Pat Mahomes, and got it to his receiver. And when it's a term that's come more in vogue in football circles, that off-platform throw, the one where you're not in your basic traditional orthodox quarterback positioning and throwing, and you're making on-the-run throws, sidearm throws, jump throws, things like that. Connor Wigman has proven he's pretty good at that. A lot of that, he said, and Jimbo Fisher said, comes back to his time playing shortstop in baseball. And he said the difference, though, and what Jimbo Fisher's harping him on, is the fact that at shortstop, you get a regular hit ground ball, you field it, the guy's an average runner. You can just kind of whip it over there with a lot of arm, forearm, wrist, and get it to first base, get the guy out. In football, even if you are going to make that sidearm throw, there's footwork to that. There's a way to be able to do it safely and to get it to the wideout accurately. And Jimbo Fisher, he said, even if he is throwing it sidearm, which he says he prefers not to, but when he does, there is still a footwork. He still needs to be fundamentally sound from the waist down to make that throw, or else that's when you get in situations where you're not accurate, where you don't get enough behind it, and it's an easy pick play for a cornerback coming in. So some really interesting dynamics there. Jimbo Fisher, Connor Wigman, like I've said multiple times, said, Jimbo gets on him when he drops down and throws that way. But those are on the throws when he can throw from over the top and make that play. Then Jimbo Fisher said there's a feel to it, and there's times in a game where you're under pressure, you're running, you're about to get brought down, you see a wide receiver out there, and the throw is to make it sidearm, and that's the only option that you have. You need to make that throw. But just kind of an interesting dynamic all around with that part of Connor Wigman's game that's been more pronounced than any A&M quarterback they've had probably since Johnny. Maybe Kyler. Kyler had a baseball background too, but I remember Johnny making some of those kind of sidearm running throws. But it's not something that you've seen from A&M quarterbacks as frequently as you do with Connor Wigman.
Yeah, sounds like Connor needs to make throws like it's a hard grounder from Julio Rodriguez instead of a little routine from Martin Maldonado.
Diving in the hole.
Hey, AL West race right now is incredible, y'all. So, all right, enough baseball talk.
Is there enough baseball talk?
No such thing. And unless we're talking about the Rangers, probably don't want to talk about them right now. Anyway, when you look at Connor though, through the first 2 weeks, I think he's like number 2 in the country in QBR behind what is it? Is it Michael Penix from Washington,
I believe so, yes.
Who's preseason Heisman front runner in that mix of guys, along with Caleb Williams from USC. Travis, I don't know about you, and I know that A&M has not played in 2 games, not super great competition, but even in the loss to Miami, I mean, I think what you've seen from Connor Wigman shows that if he's going to continue playing at a level like this, A&M's going to be at least competitive in the remainder of their games.
Pro Football Focus has him graded as the top quarterback in the SEC through 3 weeks, and was the top quarterback in week 3 as well. I think that's such a key component to why they've been successful. I think it goes back even in the Miami game. Yes, Fit Jimbo came back, and as we talked to our friend of the show, Nick Starkle, last week, he said that, there was some instances where Connor, because he was young, wasn't reading the defense the right way to call the protection the right way, and that's why some of the pressure was brought on him. But even through that pressure, he was making really good plays. I mean, the amount of points they were still able to put up with Miami, that wasn't that the A&M offense last year, under pressure or not under pressure, wasn't doing that. And so I think so much of the success of the season is going to fall on his shoulders, and he's proven so far that he is one of the standouts in the SEC. The good news for A&M fans is the fact that most of the time when you have an unexperienced quarterback, it's because the experience that he has is in playing in those blowout games, in the ULM games, in the New Mexico type games, the end of the season cupcake game. But Wigman does have SEC experience all under his belt, so he's not, you would think, going to be intimidated by crowds, by the added pressure, by the added skill set of the teams that they're playing. He's already been through that once, so he's not inexperienced in that regard.
Yet he's only played in like 7 or 8 games at this point.
And most of them have been SEC games.
And most of them he's had pretty good outings. Sans the Auburn game last year was probably his worst outing of the season. It overall was just a bad game for A&M. Mm-hmm. But, asked about what the difference was from that game versus where he's going into this week, he says he has a much better grip on the offense. He's got a better idea of how to, read defenses and pick that up. That was something you kind of asked him about. How does that translate into the college level? And it seemed like the speed of things and having to process things quicker was probably the main takeaway that I heard from what he had to say from that. Yeah,
I asked him in high school, what's the difference between reading a defense in high school and reading an SEC defense? And he said, really, not much other than the speed at which you have to read it. I think there is some other factors too in the way that they're going to deke and decoy who's blitzing and who's not blitzing. But that goes a lot into understanding the direction that guys are coming from and the space that they have and who's left unguarded or who's guarded as far as wide receivers. And you can pick up where guys are coming hot. And it seemed like he's doing a better job of that. Again, it's ULM. Let's see what he does against Auburn. But that'll be another interesting point, is to look at the pass protection and see if how much film Auburn watched that Miami game and how much they're going to try to replicate what Miami did against the A&M offense.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that Jimbo Fisher had a lot of praise for the Auburn defense, really praised their defensive line. And, you know, he said that, you know, he's always looking for improvement in the trenches, that's where the game is won. I think we can all agree with that, especially in the SEC. But, you know, that's something that I think a lot of people are going to have their eye on this weekend, is how does that A&M offensive line fare now that they're playing back against a Power 5 competition and opponent. And, you know, we got to hear from Mark Naboo, who's, you know, kind of been playing a couple different spots at guard, at center, started at center last week. I know Bryce Foster, he didn't go at all against the Warhawks. And just, you know, what A&M's going to be able to do right there on the offensive line. Yeah,
you were the one who got him to talk about one of the most interesting stories of the day.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm just trying to be funny kind of and be like, you know, this guy's from Washington, and, you know, Washington weather is just not the same as Texas weather. And, you know, I'm just keeping it lighthearted, you know. Hey, what'd you think of the summer? You know, heat really bad? And he's like, well, yeah, but, you know, I lived in Fiji for 6 years as a kid. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, so yeah, he went into detail about how his mom was still in college when when he was born, and so for her to be able to finish college, she sent him back to family in Fiji, where both his parents are from, and he basically lived a farm life for through about 6th grade. And you even asked him if he got to hang out on the beach. He said, I wasn't really thinking about the beach. I was more thinking about feeding animals. And
yeah, he was feeding the pigs and cutting the grass and making his dues, paying his rent.
Right. And so he said to that end, he's also really proud of his heritage because, you know, he played in the Polynesian Bowl. There's a high school all-star game for athletes of kind of Polynesian descent.
Mm-hmm.
But he said he's really proud of being from Fiji. Would that be a
Fijian?
Fijian? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's how he said.
We're gonna have to look it up. But
proper pronunciation.
You know, when you think of the Polynesian Bowl and a lot of these big-time athletes, it's really what you're thinking of is Samoa and Tonga, those islands, not necessarily Fiji. And so the fact that he gets to play football and kind of represent his country in that way, he's really proud of, he said, because he is from Fiji and not a Samoan or a Tongan, as most of, you know, I actually looked it up, probably the most famous college football playing Polynesian might be Dwayne Johnson from his day at Miami. He is, I believe it was Samoan. His mom had Samoan descent. So, yeah, that's a pretty interesting story that I think we're going to dive a little deeper into later this week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that. So y'all be sure to check theu.com for our follow-up story on that. You know, last guy we got to talk to today was LT Overton, and I think, of course, something that caught the eye of many was how he was used basically as, you know, a safety or a defensive back, splitting out wide, covering a slot receiver against ULM. And we talked about this a little bit after the game, but, you know, finally getting to, you know, talk to the guy and be like, hey, you know, what's kind of up with that? You know, what are the advantages? What's kind of the purpose of it? You know, somebody asked Jimbo, you know, are you worried he's actually going to have to cover someone? He's like, no, he's going to go kill him.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, yeah, he's like 6'4", 260 pounds. Might fare well if, you know, the receiver didn't get around him.
Yeah, it's going back to kind of what we were talking about on the other side of things for Connor Wigman or any quarterback. And when you can keep the same 4 lineman personnel out there, but really in a second's notice transform it from a 4-man pass rush to a 3-man pass rush and drop LT Overton into coverage. It just gives a different look. It gives it might make the quarterback call his slide, his protection in a way that opens up some space for the 3 guys coming. They might be sending a guy from the other direction. But yeah, they did it a lot on third down last year. DJ Durkin did, where they would stand him up, have 3 down linemen, and he would kind of drop back into coverage either in the flat or kind of in the tackle box. And he has the speed and athleticism to be able to do that. It's not something he ever did in high school. He said he was always a pass rusher, an edge rusher in high school, and it's something he's had to learn since he's been here. But he says he sees the effects of how it can alter the quarterback's decision-making when all of a sudden he is dropping back into coverage. They also did it with Fidel Diggs. That was in a more prevent defense kind of situation where they had 3rd and Caldwell to go on the field, and they dropped Fidel Diggs back into a middle linebacker 10 or 15 yards off the line. A little bit different situation because that was a long distance prevent type defense, but DJ Durkin hasn't shied away from using his edge rushers in pass protection. Some people might not like that because of the fact that A&M at times has struggled getting pressure on the quarterback, but it also provides opportunities for other people, other gaps, other holes to open up. So curious to see. I think it's something that's going to continue because it was something carried over from last year, but it's something to keep an eye on because of his ability to do something new and to see how it does or doesn't affect the pass rush so far.
Well, yeah, and a team like Auburn with that Hugh Freeze offense, I mean, they're going to spread it out. And Jimbo talked about how having a guy like that can really disrupt a route, route pattern and how it's run. A guy could really get thrown off from a hash to a number in a quick amount of time, just having to get around a body that's that big. And so and Fisher
talked a lot. Cease asked him about.
Yeah,
he's always said tight ends create matchup problems with defenses. If he is going to have to be forced to guard someone in the positions usually in zone defenses where he is, it's going to be a running back or slot receiver or a tight end, and probably more likely a tight end.
And Auburn's got that one guy.
Yeah, and that's actually a matchup that is mostly favorable or at least comparable. You're not having a safety on a tight end, which is the tight end's going to win more times than not, probably. And then any of the other types of guys, Fidel Diggs is going to probably LT Overton's probably going to knock their head off. So, interesting little bit of what we got going on there, and apparently
I don't know what's up with our background.
Just
don't look.
Telling us it's time to go.
Don't look. But hey, be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage leading up to A&M's SEC opener against Auburn this weekend. We'll have plenty in store for you guys. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you next week.